Colin Firth is an Academy Award-winning actor. His new movie is Railway Man, and I'm modestly excited to say that he's here with me now. Mr. Firth, welcome.
Good to be here.
So Railway Man is based on the story of a former POW who goes back to Thailand to kind of hunt down one of his torturers, more or less. Are veterans particularly interesting characters to you, or is it just that's two great stories?
One of the most interesting areas of my job is when I get asked to have a brush with someone else's extraordinary experience, whether it's beautiful or horrific or inspiring or otherwise. It's nevertheless an exploration beyond anything that has happened to me, and it becomes my job, a very difficult job, to understand it as best I can, and then to hopefully relay something of it, through this particular medium.
When I saw the movie, I thought, oh, this is going to be a nice little romance between Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman.
He's a wonderful man. I've seen it, but he's a mess.
You couldn't possibly imagine what he's been through.
I want to know.
And then suddenly you're in a war movie, and I was like, oh, he's tricked me with his romanticness.
Well, I think that's what Patty Lomax felt when she met Eric Lomax. I think we're walking a mile in her shoes, because she didn't really have a clue when she met him.
I love him, and I want him back.
As you see in the film, it wasn't really until they got married that it very suddenly and abruptly became apparent, because his nightmares were harrowing for anybody who was present or even in the same house. They couldn't even have guests staying with them because his screams were so distressing. So yes, she met a charming, somewhat eccentric, rather brilliant individual who proved to be profoundly complicated and extremely damaged.
Do you believe in revenge?
It's a question that comes up, and I think it's a question that probably should come up. But I don't really think, I'm not in the business of answering that question, and I don't think the film really is trying to. It's not a morality tale, it's not a bromide for life, it's not a
It takes the
prescription.
position, though, I would say, on revenge.
I don't actually think it does. I think it tells a story about how a man found healing and some peace by letting go of his need for revenge. I asked Eric himself over lunch. It's a very strange thing to find yourself asking a question about someone's plans for murder, and his wife's sitting there and we're having shepherd's pie.
Tea.
Yes. And I wasn't quite sure what the proper vocabulary is in polite company, but I said, did the people around you, the counsellors, your wife, and were they aware of your plan to, and he just said, kill him? Well, yes. And he said, oh yeah. And he said, it didn't matter whether they knew or not. And he said, I knew how I was going to do it. He'd thought about it, as like he'd seen in the film. He said he'd nursed himself to sleep on the screams of his victim in his mind. And he sustained himself on that, and I think this story is meaningless unless we are honest about that. And those years spent completely compelled by those things, I think it makes it much more meaningful, and actually it adds. I think it adds an incredible weight to the decision he eventually made.
At one point, Nicole Kidman's character kisses you unexpectedly. And I'm thinking, well, that's got to be happening to Colin Firth all the time, though.
No.
Really? Strange women coming up and kissing you awkwardly?
Oh, no, if only. No.
Oh, come on.
No. And no, I can honestly say I think it has never happened, and no, it's in my dreams, and in my dreams that it would look like Nicole Kidman.
Questions from readers. This one is from Kirsty Cameron from New Zealand. Did you keep the waterlogged white shirt from Pride and Prejudice?
No, there were probably about 7 of them, because they came from a costume house called Cosprop in London. Very good, and there was a most wonderful tailor there who made it all on a tiny budget. We had to rotate very few costumes to make them look as if I had a lot, and I didn't. And it was a moment when, just for the sake of continuity, we had to look like I'd been for a swim. And the shirt is barely soggy or clinging or any of the things that it's mythologized to be. And they've even got me coming out of a lake, which I never did. That got voted the most memorable moment in television history, the thing that never happened. And so I think it's been auctioned off probably more times than is actually feasible.
Is your Italian good enough for you to do an Italian movie?
Yes, and as long as I'm playing an Englishman. I couldn't be mistaken for an Italian.
Do you have a favourite word in Italian?
The insults are wonderful because they use them more sparingly than we do, but they really do use them to great effect. Stronzo is a wonderful word. It's an insult. It's.
Is it clean enough to say?
It means a piece of shit, but it's more specific than that. It means a floating piece of shit. And there's the whole thing of la figura, because we don't really have that concept. It's about the impression you create. It's very important. It's important enough to have a word which is in very, very common currency. So a bella figura is when, I've made a good impression of myself. It's not as, we have to, I'm saying it in a way that's rather laboured, but it's not like a bella figura. It means like that came across well. Or che brutta figura, or figuraccio. If you put accio on the end, it means it's the bad version of something. And that'll mean when there's been a gaffe or when you...
Messed up.
Yeah, so you just, if I sat here and made some idiotic mistake about who I was talking to, where I was, that would be a figuraccia, But for them, it's, and so you often find that a lot of these things have a precision in that language, which we don't.
Mr. Firth, thank you so much.
Thank you.